Excellent. Here we are, people. Another episode of ShiftED podcast coming to you. It's a cold, bitter, cold day here in Montreal. And I was just commiserating with a fellow Montrealer about this weather we have. But we're going to bring some interesting talk, so we'll forget all about the cold. I have Anne-Marie Cech, who's coming in from the CHSSN. Which is the Community Health and Social Service Network within our province here. And she does a big focus on early childhood and youth families. And I felt I listened to Anne-Marie at the Questgrin Forum not too long ago, and she has so many amazing things to say that I was like, I got to get this on record so that we can have a great conversation about our minority language health services, not only in our youngest learners and our youngest people, but also the broader picture as well. So Anne-Marie, thanks so much for hopping on here and sharing some of your thoughts with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I really looked forward to our conversation.
Likewise. So Anne-Marie, I guess my first question, it's kind of just to get to know you a little bit and how you got into this position of what were some of the circumstances that brought you into your project manager job with the CHSSN?
So I have before I arrived at CHSSN, I worked for an organization called H2Go, and they were funded through Avenir d'Enfants and Québec en Forme. So these are two sort of, I would say, pillar programs that existed in Quebec from about 2009 until about 2020, not quite. And these programs really were there to help communities build partnerships around early childhood and families, especially related to healthy lifestyles. So I've been navigating in the community health components and families and children for a little more than 15 years now.
Wow, excellent. And where did you find this interest in early childhood? I mean, I'm a huge early childhood advocate. I love to do lots of projects and stuff with our teachers that teach in preschool and across our daycare systems as well. What is it about these young learners that captures your attention so readily?
I think that the data is what prompts me to want to act with this age group, because 0 to 5 is really a unique opportunity in the development of the brain that you're not going to get at any other time. So early intervention is not just a key phrase. It's really scientifically proven that if you intervene with kids at that early age, you're going to have opportunities for milestones that you won't be able to have at any other time.
Right. It's a very crucial time for any human as they're growing into a human. I mean, it's crucial, those periods. Could you push that a bit further? Why is it so important? And how do we get a good start for our 0s to 5?
So if I had a visual opportunity right now, I would be able to show you, or what I would choose to show you is the glowing neurons at the time that they're sparking the most. And if you could imagine just looking at the image of a brain, when you're looking at a child between the ages 0 to 5, it's lighting up all over the place like a huge Christmas tree. And after 5 years of age, slowly you start seeing those lights fading. And they continue to fade as we age. So that's like a visual example of what we can see in terms of potential in our children. And so that's why, oftentimes people will say, for example, oh, it's so easy to learn languages when you're younger. Well, that's part of it, is the neurons are really like, our brains are like a sponge, and the brain also remains plastic in that the capacity to learn and to integrate new knowledge never goes away. Even until we die, it never goes away, but it's really more adapted for learning in those very early years. And so you want to be able to reach those important developmental life milestones, developmental milestones at the right time, like for language development or emotional cognitive learning, those kinds of things.
Yeah. And every kid is unique in that their pace of development might vary all over the place. Does that speak true to you?
Yes, of course. Everybody's unique and all our brains are unique. And I mean, I'm not a neuroscientist, so
Mm-hmm.
I can't speak too much about it. But for sure, I mean, I've seen it with my own kids. I'm the mom of 3 boys who are all neurodiverse in many ways. And they have learned and they continue to learn differently, right? They're young adults now, but I see it still now that, there's some kids that it takes them longer to learn certain things, and that's okay. But we have to be there to support in those unique ways because not everybody learns the same way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In our preschool program here in Quebec, too, we look at the 5 developmental phases and to how to observe all those as kids progress through their lives. It's really quite fascinating. And what does the CHSSN, how does it create those connections between school, kids growing up, learning, and their family and community? Like, what are some of the threads that you guys attach to those communities?
That's a great question, Chris. And before I jump into that actual question, I'd like to create a little bit of a context of why CHSSN has decided to take part in addressing the needs of English younger and
Mm-hmm.
school-aged English-speaking children and their families, because this is a CHSSN has existed for 25 years, but the early childhood dossier here has really taken on more importance. It's for 6 years now since my arrival at CHSSN. I didn't put it on the table. It was on the table when I arrived, ready for me to pick up. But the reason why CHSSN took an interest in early childhood and families is because there was a study that was done in the Gaspésie and les Îles de la Madeleine, which demonstrated that there were really much fewer available activities. Activities for child development in those regions compared to in English compared to Francophone activities. And there was also some important data telling us that English speaking kids were lagging behind compared to French speaking children. And so we felt, or the CHSSN felt, that it would be important to address those needs. And now, how does CHSSN help connect community organizations with schools and whatnot? And why is that important to us? Is because we know that if families are not accessing services or are struggling in the access of service, this will affect their well-being and this will have an impact on child development. So right now, we don't have any studies that tell us directly that access to services has an impact on the development of children, but we know in 2025, or rather the last big study that was done on child development, which is the Enquête québécoise sur le développement des enfants à la maternelle, told us that children, English-speaking children, when they're in kindergarten, are still faring worse off than French-speaking children. And we believe if those children have, and their families have better access to services, those kids will be better off.
And when you say services, Anne-Marie, what could you elaborate on that a bit? Like what aspects or what services would support them in this developmental time of their lives?
So I'm thinking of, I'd say, 2 main services. So one, of course, is the health service. So anything that has to do with specialized services such as physiotherapy, speech language pathology, psychoeducators, that kind of a thing, and everything related to physical health as well.
Okay.
But there's a lot that can be done in prevention and promotion. And I think that's where schools and communities can really work together at addressing this gap in services. And so anything that's literacy activities that could be made available to families and children, those are super, super important. There is such a big difference in terms of the number of words that a child is exposed to. And if you read to them once a day compared to children who are not read to once a day, and if there's one thing that parents can do to help their kids prepare for school, is reading books with them. That is the number one thing that they can do that will have an impact on their educational success, is reading a book every day. You don't have to buy anything special. You don't have to be on any devices, just books. So anything that helps kids access books and helps support parents in how to interact with their child with a book. There's a lot of initiatives out there related to songs, rhymes, play activities, free play activities where kids can have space to move. And I'm thinking about schools who have these great gyms that aren't being used or could be better used on weekends and in evenings, where families can just go and play freely. So kids don't need complex learning environments. They actually need very simple learning environments where they can interact with that environment. So a ball in a gym where you can run. I mean, put a bunch of kids in a gym, they'll find something to do and they'll find something to play with in there. Even if it's a Kleenex, they'll start throwing that thing around.
I love that. I mean, it's not complicated, I guess, is what you're saying, but it's making it a routine, making it something that there's a habit that forms where you're reading every day. You're seeking out areas where kids can go and play freely, outdoor spaces, indoor spaces, and connecting those. Because it rings true a lot with my educational background of that kind of like trying to make it harder than it needs to be. That kids, as they're growing up, need to feel attached to someone, and then they need to play. And if we kept it at that basics instead of preparing them for grade 1 or grade 2 or preparing them for the unknown or the modern technology of the world, like if we bring it back down to the essence of life, do you think that would have a better effect on our kids than how it's going right now, according to the data and the information that you have at your fingertips?
There's parts of that I can respond to and parts that I can't. But one thing that I can say is that children, like you said, they need a safe space to develop in and to explore. Essentially, a kid's job is to explore the world. And that's what learning is. And so having areas where that is made possible to them and taking a little bit of risks, because that's when you learn what your own limits are. And if you run too fast or you don't have the right pair of shoes to run in, I'm thinking about my son who a few years ago, we were on a trip and he was in a hotel. He's 15-year-old. He should know this, but I guess this part he never learned. He was running on a treadmill in his Croc shoes. And he fell on the treadmill, and so. But these are learning experiences,
Totally.
and he remembers it, of course. And I don't think he's going to do that again. But the point is that taking risks for children in free spaces is a really great opportunity for them to learn to, when other kids are there, they're learning social skills, and the other thing I have to delve a little bit, I'm going to allow myself to delve a little bit into free play because I'm very passionate about it, And I think that when you bring a group of kids together, what's been observed is if there are different levels of skills, kids will naturally adapt the rules in a context of a game to facilitate the flow of the game. So if you have older kids and they're playing, say, kickball, which is similar to baseball, but you're kicking a ball, they might make the rules a little bit different for the younger ones, because if they have to wait for the kid to actually be able to kick the ball far enough to make a point, then it complexifies the game. So kids tend to self-organize. They have the abilities to do it. They have the abilities to find solutions together. And so I think we have
I
a
love
lot
that.
to gain. We have a lot to gain by giving kids a little bit more space, but being there to support them through it. And the reason why I'm talking about this also is because especially with Christmas coming around, we often feel pressure as parents to have the right games and to register them to the right activities so that to benefit their development as much as possible. But in reality, they don't need anything that's high tech. Definitely not. I think we all know that screens actually can have a negative, there are a lot of negative impacts related to screens, but things like playing outside in snow and building a snow castle, or going sledding. There are a lot of skills that children and parents can build together, everything from making the plan to build the snow castle, figuring out with the different types of snow. There's harder snow, there's softer snow, you can decorate it. And what I love, and I feel like I'm going all over the place, but what I especially love about snow castles is they become a hangout for the rest of the winter where families can go back to and keep building on it and maintain it. And I know that I've had a lot of fun with my kids doing that. It gives them like a sort of a purpose or a goal. And then if there are other kids involved, well, then they have to learn to negotiate on, other elements of the snow castle that they want to build. Anyway.
I love your ideas too. And I've been starting to think about that too, because Christmas is around the corner, of things or experiences, like, should I just buy more things, that they probably don't really need or care about after Christmas is gone, or an experience that will stick with them? Going to a hockey game, going out and sliding, going skating, pick up whatever it might be, that I think that those kinds of experiences will stick much more than, oh, I got this new brush. So I love what you're saying. And I'm a huge free play advocate as well. I think that it's the heart of, and oftentimes free play is kind of misunderstood in what it is. What does that mean? And I always tell teachers that the kid decides who to play with, how to play, where to play. I mean, obviously we need to make sure they're safe and everything, but it's driven by the kid. And it perplexes some. And I say, well, be playful. Just let them be playful. Like all other animals out there, like when cats are being playful or dogs are being playful, there's some risk, sure. But at the same time, they're learning regulation, right? Like you mentioned, that these are important steps that they need to go through. And Anne-Marie, kind of like with this kind of whole school and community in our minds, what are some of the links that you guys give as support to those schools and the families that maybe most of our population might even not know about?
So within one of our early childhood programs at CHSSN, which is called Bright Beginnings, there are coordinators in each of the regions of Quebec that are within these 23 English-speaking network organizations. So what the organizations, we like to call them network partnership initiatives. So in our lingo, they're NPIs. And each of these NPIs, as I was saying, has a coordinator within those within their establishment. And the role of the coordinator is to build partnerships with existing organizations that offer services. So they will collaborate with their English speaking schools. They will collaborate with the CLSCs within your network, Chris. They will collaborate with the community learning centers. They will also collaborate with libraries and other municipal programs. Just to give you an idea. So also les maisons de la famille. And what these coordinators do is they help facilitate access to existing services. So for example, if a maison de la famille is offering a parent-child program where they're cooking or they're reading together, but the maison de famille doesn't have an English-speaking staff, then one of our coordinators can go help offer that activity bilingually, or they can help translate parts of the materials that parents would need. So within the schools, our organizations, our coordinators in our NPI organizations can also help facilitate access to professionals who could come give workshops within the schools. So, for example, if I know that, like, what I've heard is there, especially in the high schools, this is a little outside of younger kids, but there are a lot of needs for support in mental health. And a lot of our organizations work with schools to be able to offer workshops for the students. They can also bring in specialists to give workshops to parents or to give workshops to teachers. There are lots of materials that exist that teachers might not be aware of that they can integrate into their curriculum. So our organizations are aware of these tools that exist, and they can also help facilitate for schools to become hubs of available resources in mental health, for example. Or, I'm also thinking about a project that we had around autism, where our organizations connected with existing autism services in their community. So these organizations, or our organizations, could help create a link between the school and other existing services, or at least making the information available to the schools so that they can communicate it to their students or parents.
I love that. So there is support out there. It's just finding it, which, thank goodness we're having this podcast, because I'll connect all the resources that Anne-Marie's talking about in this podcast so that you can have that available to you, listener. It's so fascinating. I mean, our time is running to a close here, Anne-Marie, and I just have so many other things. So we definitely need to do a part 2 of this, because there's so much about belonging and well-being. And I mean, like I said before we hopped on here, we could probably talk for hours on these subjects. But I guess to wrap things up, Anne-Marie, I have one other question, and I'll try to make it not so big. But as we kind of navigate through, Quebec as a community, both, Francophone communities, Anglophone communities, are there happy stories out there where communities come together to support common causes around, our children, our education, our community services? I'm thinking of the holiday season, and maybe we can leave on a joyful note of an example that you know of, and I'm sure you know a million, but have really done a good job where communities come together to support one another.
Yeah. I love that you're bringing the conversation in this direction, and it leads me to talk to you about an initiative that happened between a maison de famille. So this isn't one involving a school, but it involves a maison de famille and one of our organizations called Eco02, who's in the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. And the maison de famille is la maison de la famille de Chicoutimi. And they have come together with other partners. It's a region where the partners are really work very closely in collaboration with one another. And the Maison de Famille was seeing some immigrant families coming in that felt more comfortable speaking English, or there were newcomers from elsewhere in Canada that were coming to their region, a lot of military families, for example. And they decided to come together to be able to offer programs in English or bilingual, where they even have parent support groups where there are Francophone and Anglophone parents coming together. And more, what we're seeing is there are a lot of benefits to bringing Francophone and Anglophone families because it expands the networks of those new families coming in that might not have French as a first language. And so they can make friends outside of the English speaking community. And at the same time, it helps Francophone families see the realities of the Anglophone families and recognize that the challenges that they face in learning French are really don't come from not wanting to learn. They actually really do want to learn, but that it takes time and it's complex and they have other priorities when they're first getting settled into a new region. But yeah. So I
Feeling a
feel like
sense of
that.
belonging from
Yes,
the French community as they come into Quebec. I love that.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So I'll
I
send you a link. I'll send you a link
I
to
love
that
that.
video. We had a little video made on this
Oh,
initiative.
cool, cool. I'll definitely post that for sure. And it kind of brings us back to language learning. It takes time when you get older, right? I mean, I think it's 12 pre-puberty is your best time to learn language, and then it gets harder and harder as it goes on. So we do have to understand that they are trying. There's always an effort there. Whatever I've seen across this beautiful province of ours is that the effort is always there and the respect is always there. What a great story to end on, Emery. I really appreciate that one. That's a good one. And I definitely would love to continue this conversation with you down the road. Um, I feel there's a lot more that I know there's a lot more we can talk about, but I thank you for your time today. And I wish you a great holiday season too with your family and enjoy this chilly air. Hopefully it will depart in the spring and we will forget all about it. But thank you so much for your time today, Emery. It was really great talking with
Well,
you.
thank you, and a wonderful holiday season to you and your family as well. And the cold is good. The snow is good. Remember, snow castles.
Yes. I'm going to build one with my kids this holiday season. So thanks for inspiring a project.
Wonderful.
Thank you.